good news. It's great news. It's great news because it's not up to us. It's up to God. And God took it on his own initiative. And he didn't just create someone to come. He himself came. And then then he didn't just come to show us what to do. He came, showed us, but then did it. He paid the full price for all of our sin so that we may just have to say yes to it. I mean, it's just amazing. We don't have to bring anything to the table. He brought everything to the table. And then he paid for it with his own life. And we just simply get to eat now. And before we were eating in the midst of, we were eating just gravel. And now he said, here's a banquet. This is what you were designed to eat of. Truth, mercy, goodness, life. And he said, now come and eat.
The hearts of men, they can't contain their wonder toward you.
For us, we have made it just a place where the church can unite. So it doesn't matter what congregation you come from, doesn't matter. It's a very unifying place. So I have enjoyed that. And so we don't have any direction in going towards becoming a congregation. Now, some people would say this is my primary community, though. Basically a place where people can gather and do two things: worship, pray. I believe God wants the main thing to be the main thing. And the main thing is him. He's the main thing. And we don't have to dress him up and we don't have to hype him up. He's attractive. And so if he's just being adored, if he's just being loved in the room, so creating a setting where there's just worship, ongoing worship of him, it creates an atmosphere where people can just come in and behold the main thing and not be distracted by others doing all types of things. Because we're so busy doing many things. And so I could use the example of Jesus when Jesus is asked by that wise man, he said, tell me, what are the two great, what is the greatest commandment? And he says, love your God, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your soul, all of your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then Luke, in his writing, he goes right into the Good Samaritan story. There's love your neighbor as yourself. And then the next story he goes into, and he's the only one to give this story, is the story of Mary and Martha. And he gives Martha, and Martha is worried and distracted by many things. Hello, Church of America. We're worried and we're distracted by many things. And Jesus says, one thing is needed. He doesn't do that very often. He says, one thing. I'm going to limit myself right now and tell you, if there's only one thing that is needed, this is the thing. Sit at my feet and listen. And I'm afraid that without the house of prayer expressing itself in such a poignant way, like really going after it, if the church doesn't see that in this hour, they might have neglected the one thing that was needed. Martha is rebuked. She's not just said, oh, you have a different personality than Mary. She's rebuked. And she's told, and the thing about Martha that's so precious but so, is that she's, in the moment that Jesus is in her vicinity, in her house, the very things that she does is she demands and she accuses him. Do you not care? Tell her. And this is what I'm afraid the church could be at if we don't give ourselves to sitting and listening. That we would be a people that just demand of him and then also accuse him when it's not going the way we want it to go. And I don't want to be that person, and I don't want our generation to be that we would love him through and through. and that we would love him in all types of situations. And what is required is that we would sit and listen so that we would be postured in a way that we would be able to respond properly to Jesus. They might have done everything and yet have neglected the one thing, the very thing that Jesus said, if you have to do only one thing, this is the thing to do. And I don't want to see that happen. Not only that, Jesus doesn't want to see that happen. So Jesus is saying, we're going to do a house of prayer. This was in his heart the whole time. David did it. The synagogue, the early church movement was all about this. They gave themselves to the word, and they gave themselves to prayer and fasting. Amen.
Are ever fixed upon you. The hearts of men.
PiHOP is amazing, but we're only connected to PiHOP Kansas City through relationships. It's not an affiliation. It's not a denomination. There's no longing to become that. It's just an inspiration and a family of affection. And then really, I think it's in the heart of God to express House of Prayer is expressed based on the region that it's planted in. Because God knows all the needs of that region, and so it's gonna look like that region. So to replicate one that's in the Midwest and to do it on the East Coast, it won't translate. And that's the same with the West Coast. So I believe each house of prayer will be given, just from my understanding, each one will have a reflection of how God wants to touch that region. So the rhythm of that could look very different. It doesn't have to be 24/7. It can look I believe God will establish the rhythm based on how he wants to be reflected in that region. That's so Western you have to do 24. Anyway, the language used in the Bible is day and night. For the priests, that meant there was a morning offering and an evening offering. And so the rhythm of day and night, every day, that is the rhythm of church. That is the rhythm of being the people of God. And so I believe the house of prayer can manifest that in great ways because they've limited themselves to saying, hey, we're going to do a few things. We're going to do worship and we're going to do prayer. And so the rhythm of that is of doing day, night, every day. It's not that complicated. And it invites community because it's fun to worship with people and it's fun to pray with people. When you have to teach every night, you get burned out. When you do a study every night, you get burned out. But when you pray together, you can do that every night. When you worship together, you can do that every day. And so I believe it's because the calling that we've been called to is an everyday calling. It's not a weekend calling. It's not a once a week calling. It's an everyday calling. And we need one another in that calling. So I know that's not at all where I thought I would go, but anyway, I went there.
There's no one like you found worthy